The anime takes place in a world where there are armed detectives called Bute, whose job is to catch criminals and reduce crime that is currently rampant throughout the world. So each Bute is trained in a specific field in a school-like facility, where they will learn and hone their skills. There are many elite schools specifically for Bute, and Tokyo is no exception. They have an academy called Tokyo Bute High, where talented agents gather to learn how to be good Bute. The main character of this anime is a student at Tokyo Bute High. His name is Kinji Toyama, and he is an E-rank student, which is the lowest combat level. But behind that, he has a special ability called Hysteria Mode, which will be activated whenever he experiences certain things, such as kissing a girl or touching a woman's chest. In other words, his Hysteria Mode will only activate if he is sexually aroused. This condition is embarrassing, and Kinji is well aware of it, but there's nothing he can do because that mode is a genetic trait every male in his family has. But at least these special abilities give him some advantage in battle. If Kinji is in Hysteria Mode, his physical and cognitive abilities will greatly increase, and he will be able to do things that ordinary humans cannot. Besides, he will try desperately to protect women if he is in that mode, regardless of the risks. But despite being gifted with such abilities, Kinji has always wanted to stop being a Bute and leave the academy to get a normal and peaceful life. However, it seems that it will be difficult for him to achieve his dream because he is being targeted by someone known as the Bute Killer. In fact, he was already involved in an assault incident when the anime had just started. In the beginning, Kinji is shown cycling towards school when a remote-controlled Segway armed with machine guns suddenly chases him. The Segway informed him that his bicycle had been planted with a bomb, which would explode if he slowed down. So Kinji was forced to pedal because the Segway threatened to shoot him if he dared to jump off the bike. Fortunately, at this critical moment, a girl named Arya Kanzaki appears to save Kinji. Armed with 2 semi-automatic pistols and 2 kodachi swords, Arya jumped from a great height before destroying the Segway. Though her dangerous actions result in Kinji having to catch her, otherwise she will land hard on the ground. So he took his hands off the handlebars to catch her. And maybe because of the strong gust of wind and explosion, they landed in the gym storage shed, positioned on top of each other. As a result, Arya became angry and accused Kinji of wanting to do something perverted to her. However, their argument is interrupted as more Segways appear and open fire on them. Luckily for them, the gym board where they fell was equipped with bulletproof armor, making them safely ensconced inside. But here, Arya didn't just sit idly by, letting the Segways shoot at them. She fired back at them with her 2 pistols, causing them to temporarily retreat. Even so, Arya and Kinji knew the Segways would be back. Thus Kinji, whose Hysteria Mode had activated after his face was pressed against Arya's chest, asked her to sit down and rest while he destroyed the Segways. After that, Arya asked Kinji to reconsider his intention of fighting the Segways alone, as it would be too dangerous for him, but Kinji asked her not to worry too much about him. He promised that he would be able to protect her and overcome their enemies. Sure enough, with his Hysteria Mode, Kinji managed to destroy the Segways easily as taking something from his pocket. It turns out that his shots are really very accurate. Not once did he miss his target. But even though the Segways were taken care of, Kinji still had to face Arya. She was still angry about the sexual harassment that he did to her earlier, even though he had never done it. She was so angry that she even tried to attack him. Fortunately, Kinji can fend off the attacks easily because of his Hysteria Mode. Afterward, without paying any attention to Arya's grumbling, he left her and continued to school. But how surprised Kinji was when he arrived at his class. He found out that Arya had transferred to his school, and she was placed in the same class as him. To make matters worse, she insists on taking the seat next to him. Not only that, but when Kinji returns to his apartment after school, still wondering why the Bute killer was after him, Arya suddenly enters the apartment uninvited with her suitcases. And while pointing her finger at him, she declared that from now on, he was her slave. Because of that, he couldn't refuse her orders, and he couldn't refuse her arrival at his apartment. Intrigued by her intentions, Kinji asked why Arya wanted to make him her slave. She explained that she wanted him to join her Bute party to do missions together. That's why she first wanted to make him her slave, so he couldn't refuse her offer. But of course, Kinji refuses the offer to join Arya, considering he intends to stop being a Bute and leave the academy. He also refused when Arya said she wanted to live with him in his apartment. As a result, they had a big argument, which only ended when Kinji went outside to calm his mind. Shortly after, Kinji returned to his apartment. At that moment, he guessed Arya must have left by now, but his assumption was wrong. She was now taking a bath in his bathroom as if she were in her own house. While Kinji is confused about what to do with Arya, his childhood friend Shirayuki Hotogi comes to visit. And like most childhood friends in anime, Shirayuki has a crush on Kinji and is jealous of any girl who approaches him. Knowing she would come certainly made Kinji panic, because he didn't want Shirayuki to know that a girl was taking a bath in his apartment, so he hastily closed the front door and asked her to leave. With Shiryuki gone, Kinji needs to think about how to kick Arya out of his apartment. Shortly after, he tried to steal her pistols and swords, but Arya caught him as he was about to do so. So as punishment, Arya beat him up and forced him to let her live there, and thus, they started living together. The next day, after class, Kinji took on a quest to find a missing cat. He planned to do the work himself without inviting Arya, who was currently training with the students in her department. Arya is in the assault department, the most dangerous department in Tokyo Bute High, while Kinji is a member of the inquest department. Their levels also differed greatly. Arya was ranked S, the highest rank, Kinji ranked E, the lowest. She is also a quadra, a title that allows her to use 2 weapons, guns and swords. So with all the differences between them, Arya might prefer to undergo training rather than look for a lost cat. But again, that's wrong because Arya was already waiting for Kinji at the school gate, ready to follow him on whatever quest he chose. Though, finding a cat is not as easy as it sounds. For the next few hours, they circled around town and visited alleys where cats normally hang out, but they couldn't find it, even after half a day had passed. Exhausted and hungry, Arya invites Kinji to rest in a park where they can eat lunch. But apparently, the park was a popular spot for couples to date, which bothered Arya, because she hates love and dating the most. After eating, Kinji finally found the missing cat and completed his quest. But since he is still curious about Arya, especially her background, he meets his classmate, Riko Mina, who, despite the students thinking of her as the biggest idiot in their class, has a talent for intelligence gathering. Then Kinji asks Riko to tell him information about Arya, and in return, he gives Riko some of her favorite anime. Hearing that, Riko happily agreed to the exchange, so she started telling him everything she knew about Arya, including her being of royal blood and how she used to be a Bute in Europe. So armed with this information, Kinji mocked Arya as soon as he came home, calling her a noble's daughter who was very concerned about appearances. But his ridicule moved her heart because Kinji took the time to investigate her background. So Arya once again asked him to join the assault department and cooperate with her. She even cornered him to the point where he nearly went into hysteria mode. In the end, Arya's coercion was successful. Kinji reluctantly accepts her offer, though he is only willing to work on one assault case. After that, he will return to his normal life. It turned out that Kinji himself had actually been in the assault department in the past, but his desire to live a relaxed and peaceful life made him decide to change departments. And now, thanks to Arya, he was forced to rejoin the assault department. His return inevitably surprised his schoolmates, who didn't expect him to join assault again. After school, Arya and Kinji walked home together, and they had a conversation along the way. Suddenly, she praised Kinji, who was popular among the students, different from her, who were often shunned. Arya realized that it was because her ranking was too high that the other students became nervous around her. But her solitude is reflected in her name, Arya, which means solo vocal in opera, so it's no wonder that she has been working and living alone more often this time. Hearing her story, Kinji thought that Arya now wanted to try what it's like to work with a partner, so she forced him to work with her. But Arya only responded to him by laughing, as if he had just said something funny. That made Kinji even more annoyed with her, so he told her to go home first because he was going to stop by the arcade center. However, Arya refused to go home without him. She also wanted to come to the arcade. Arriving at the arcade, Arya becomes obsessed with the dolls on the claw crane, but she always fails when trying to get to them. The sight made Kinji feel sorry to see her, so he decided to help her. Eventually, he got 2 dolls, which made Arya smile all the way home. Then she gave one of the dolls to him as a thank you, and he accepted it with a blushing face. The next day, Kinji left for school early to catch the bus, though in the end, he still had to walk to school because the bus had left when he arrived at the bus stop. However, while he was leisurely walking, Arya suddenly called his cell phone and informed Kinji that the bus going to their school had been hijacked. And to make matters worse, the hijacker had planted a bomb on the bus, which would explode if the bus slowed down. By this time, the bus driver and passengers had become aware of the bomb. Luckily on the bus were 2 Bute, Goki Mudo and Ryo Shirani, who responded to the hijacking with cool heads. They asked the driver to remain calm before searching for the bomb with the other passengers. However, the hijacker was not happy when the passengers tried to find the bomb. That was shown by how they sent in an armed convertible that opened fire on the bus, preventing the passengers from continuing to search for the bomb. Meanwhile, Kinji met Arya, and they got into a car to catch up with the bus. Suddenly, Arya got some information about the hijacker, who was said to be using electromagnetic wave frequencies to carry out their crimes. And even though she still didn't know their identities, Arya believed that the hijacker was a different person than the one who attacked Kinji the other day. Soon Arya and Kinji arrived at the scene and immediately destroyed the convertible. Then they jumped onto the still-running bus to defuse the bomb inside and save the passengers. But much to their horror, many people, including the driver, were injured, forcing Mudo to take over the wheel from him. But even then, the gas was nearly empty, and if the bomb was not found soon, they would die. And so Arya and Kinji split up to find the bomb. She went down to the bottom of the bus while Kinji searched the inside. Sure enough, Arya found the bomb on the underside of the bus, but she also realized that the hijacker might be monitoring them from a distance. So she asked Kinji to find the sensor device transmitting the bus to the hijacker while she tries to defuse the bomb. Sometime later, Kinji found the sensor on the bus's roof and destroyed it. But right then, another armed convertible appeared and it tried to shoot Kinji, who was still on top of the bus. Luckily for him, Arya noticed the vehicle, so she quickly climbed onto the bus and shielded Kinji from the gunfire while simultaneously shooting back at the vehicle. She manages to destroy the vehicle, but then she is knocked unconscious by the gunshots. With Arya passed out and the bomb still not defused, Kinji was in complete panic. He didn't know what to do, and the bus would soon run out of gas. But at this critical moment, he heard the sound of a helicopter approaching the bus. And when he looked up, Kinji saw a Bute named Reki in the helicopter, aiming her rifle at the bomb under the bus. Indeed, Reki is an S-rank Bute who is also a reliable marksman. So great is the aiming skill that she is said to be able to shoot her target at a distance of 2 kilometers, and she will not miss. Looks like it's not just a rumor because now she can shoot the bomb under the bus with just one shot. In the blink of an eye, the bomb bounced off the street and fell into the river, where it then exploded. Thus, Kinji, Arya, and the passengers survived the incident. The next day, when Kinji was about to visit Arya at the hospital, he ran into Reki in the hospital hallway. They took the time to talk for a while, and from their chat, it was revealed that Reki already knew Arya. The fact is that Arya invited Reki to carry out the mission to save the bus passengers, and that's why Reki was at the scene yesterday. She knew that Arya and Kinji were on the same team now because Arya had told her before. Arya also told Reki that she wanted to partner with Kinji, as she believed they could solve any case if they worked together. However, Kinji didn't have much to say about the compliment. Soon after, Kinji parted ways with Reki and then entered Arya's room, where he gave her an investigative report regarding yesterday's bus hijacking. Though the investigation has not yielded any results. Despite the many people they had questioned, they still couldn't identify the culprit. But Arya had something else on her mind that made her not interested in reading the report. She was annoyed and disappointed because Kinji didn't bring out his special ability yesterday, even though she wanted to see his hysteria mode again. She wonders if Kinji had a special power, why didn't he use it at a crucial moment? Knowing that made her regret her decision to save him yesterday because Kinji couldn't live up to her expectations. Hearing those outspoken words, anger filled Kinji's heart. He told Arya that he would no longer be her partner because he had decided to stop being a Bute. After saying that, he left her alone in her room. Later that night, Kinji has nightmares about past events that happened to his brother, Kenichi. It turns out that about 6 months earlier, Kenichi was on a cruise ship that ended up burning in the middle of the sea. He saved all the passengers and crew on the ship, but for some reason, he disappeared. And his disappearance eventually led the people and the media to blame Kenichi. They think that Kenichi, who is a Bute, should have prevented the incident before it happened. Kinji saw with his own eyes how the public blamed his brother, and he came to think that Bute were never appreciated even if they saved many lives. That is also one of the reasons why Kinji wants to stop being a Bute. He even thinks his hysteria mode is a curse that prevents him from living a normal life. The next day, when Kinji was taking a walk to enjoy his Sunday afternoon, he saw Arya coming out of a salon wearing nice clothes as if she was going on a date. Curious, he followed her to find out where she was going, but to his surprise, Kinji found Arya had gone to the police station. Here, Arya realized that Kinji was secretly following her, so she invited him to enter with her into the police station. It turned out that Arya had come to the police station to visit her mother, who was being held there. Her mother is actually innocent, but she was framed as the Bute killer and perpetrator of many crimes, resulting in her being sentenced to prison for over 800 years. Now she is in jail, although the real Bute killer is back in action. Thus, Arya came to tell her mother that she was planning to find the mastermind who had framed her mother. If she proves that her mother is not the Bute killer, the sentence will be reduced to only 742 years. But still, it's better than 864 years. Unfortunately, her mother didn't agree with her plan, especially since Arya was determined to act alone. Even if Arya wanted to help, her mother wanted her to find a partner first because she would only be able to bring out her full abilities if she had a comrade. Sadly, Arya didn't have time to answer that since visiting hours had ended. Feeling sad because she had to part with her mother again, she walked out of the police station and cried in the pouring rain. The next day, Arya didn't come to school. This was the first time since she transferred to Tokyo Bute High. So because Kinji couldn't ask directly, he decided to investigate Arya's mother's case through online articles because he was still curious whether she was really guilty. According to Arya herself, her mother was framed by a secret organization called IU. After reading the articles and remembering Arya's conversation with her mother yesterday, Kinji finally realized the meaning of her words the other day. At that time, Arya demanded him to become her slave, but what she really meant was a partner. She wants Kinji to become her partner in investigating her mother's case. As Kinji was thinking about Arya, Ryo came to the library and told him that Arya would return to London at 7 p.m. Since he was Arya's former partner, Ryo thought Kinji should know that. So if he wanted to say goodbye to her, he'd better head to Haneda Airport tonight. Later that day, Riko contacted Kinji and asked him to meet at a karaoke place, but apparently, she didn't invite him so they could sing together there. Instead, she revealed to Kinji that his brother had died in the ship hijacking incident, and the person behind the ship hijacking is none other than Bute Killer. Needless to say, Kinji was angry to hear this theory, but in this kind of mood, Riko instead chose to climb into his lap and start seducing him, causing Kinji's hysteria mode to activate. And with his analytical skills now increasing rapidly, Kinji could somehow deduce that the plane Arya was going to be on would be hijacked by the Bute Killer. Hence, Kinji rushed to the airport, boarded the plane, and asked the pilot to abort the flight. But the pilot refused his orders, despite his status as a Bute. So the flight will continue even though there is a possibility that the plane was targeted by hijackers. Because of that, Kinji inevitably has to find another way to stop the hijacker. Shortly after, Kinji met Arya and explained the danger that would happen. He said that this was a chance for them to solve their first assault case together, so he requested that Arya let him become her partner again. Moreover, there is a possibility that the hijacker is the Bute Killer. Shortly after that, the Bute Killer announced over the loudspeaker that they had hijacked the plane, and thus, they went to the deck to check if the Bute Killer was on board. Sure enough, Bute Killer was on board that plane. But Arya and Kinji didn't expect that the Bute Killer was Riko, who turned out to have the real name Riko Mina Lupin IV, and she is a descendant of Arsène Lupin. But the surprises didn't end there. Riko admits right in front of Arya and Kinji that she is the Bute Killer, the mastermind behind all the recent hijackings, including the cruise ship hijacking that killed Kinji's brother. Riko did that because she was after Arya, the fourth Holmes. So, Arya is a descendant of Sherlock Holmes, none other than Arsène Lupin's rival. 100 years ago, their great-grandfather was involved in a fight that ended in a draw. Therefore, now she wants to beat Arya to surpass her great-grandfather. It turned out that the challenge was accepted by Arya, who immediately attacked Riko with her weapon. They fought fiercely for the next few minutes, and even though they were both quadra, in the end, Riko had the upper hand over Arya. She even managed to shoot Arya in her chest, which knocked her unconscious. Before Riko could finish Arya, Kinji reacted quickly by saving and carrying her to safety. There he gave her first aid, and before she regained consciousness. But instead of resting, the first thing Arya did when she woke was got her weapons. She realized that Riko had beaten her, making her very angry. Arya swore that she would beat Riko to the punch, even though in the fight earlier, it was obvious that she had lost badly to Riko. Kinji also knew it would be impossible for Arya to win even if she was in top shape, so he tried to calm her down by kissing her. And who would have thought his decision to kiss her was so effective? Suddenly, she regained her consciousness, while at the same time, Kinji's hysteria mode awakened. Then they both agree that working together is the only way to stop Riko. Meanwhile, the news about the plane hijacking has reached Arya's and Kinji's classmates, who are currently still gathered at school. Both Ryo and Muto knew that Arya and Kinji were on the plane, so they were determined to try to save their friends no matter what. The scene returns to the plane, where Kinji and Arya agree to split the work. Then Kinji said he would try to subdue Riko while Arya would control the plane starting to land. After searching, Kinji managed to find Riko, who seemed very calm despite the situation, and instead of fighting him, she chose to escape using a parachute, because she knew that the plane would soon be hit by missiles. Shortly afterward, the missiles came and hit the plane, damaging 2 of the engines and causing a fuel leak. The explosion injured Kinji, but he could still move and meet Arya in the cockpit. After that, using a satellite phone, he contacted Muto to update him on the situation and ask for help, for he knew Muto was a transportation geek. In response, Muto directed Kinji to land the plane at a point where Muto would set up an emergency landing light. Fortunately, their efforts ended with great success. Kinji and Arya managed to land the plane safely. A few days later, Arya discovered that there was a chance that her mother's sentence would be reduced thanks to the plane hijacking. This incident can prove that the real Bute Killer is still roaming free, while her mother is just a victim of slander. But regardless of her mother's fate, Arya will still return to England, especially since Kinji refuses to continue being her partner. However, after a few moments of thinking, Kinji suddenly changed his mind, so he went after Arya without wasting time. But unfortunately, he arrived late because the private helicopter she was on had taken off. At that moment, Kinji still didn't give up. He kept shouting Arya's name, begging her not to leave him because he agreed to be her partner. And to his surprise, Arya jumped from the helicopter. She was happy that Kinji was finally willing to join her. So with this, Arya returned to Kinji's apartment, where they would be living together again. Hearing that, Shirayuki wasn't happy to see them living together and becoming partners. So when she saw Arya in Kinji's apartment, she immediately drew her sword and lunged at Arya, intending to kill her. Thus begins a duel between them, who fights for Kinji. However, the duel lasted very short. Arya realized that Shirayuki was a Chote, the type of Bute with Esper powers. Currently, Shirayuki is indeed a student at Bute High School, where she enrolls in the SSR department, a special department that researches paranormal powers and trains Chote. But behind all that, Shirayuki is an armed shrine maiden, according to her family's tradition. Her family shrine is not far from the Kinji family home, thus making them close friends since they were little. And as a childhood friend willing to do anything for Kinji, she also doesn't want another girl to approach him, let alone live under the same roof. So, in other words, Shirayuki is a yandere type of girl. Meanwhile, Arya herself realized that Shirayuki could have killed her out of jealousy, so she explained to Shirayuki that Kinji and her didn't have a special relationship. That's why Shirayuki didn't need to feel jealous or anything. The next day, the homeroom teacher announces to the students that the Bute Olympiad, or Adsert as it is known, will be held soon. Kinji, who is only a Bute rank E, decides not to join the event, while Arya chooses to participate as part of the cheer squad. But even though she will be busy practicing with the cheerleading team, she will take the time to train Kinji so he can more easily control his hysteria mode. Meanwhile, Shirayuki is called to the staff room because her teacher hears that she is being targeted by Durandal, a mysterious figure who often kidnaps Chote. Worried about her safety, the teacher suggested that Shirayuki hire a bodyguard to protect her from Durandal. Moreover, Adsert will be held soon, and many people outside the school community will come to Bute High, which will be very dangerous for her because Durandal could blend in with the visitors. Incidentally, while Shirayuki and the teacher were chatting, Arya and Kinji had been eavesdropping from behind the ventilation hole. All this time, Arya believed that Durandal was the one who framed her mother, so when she heard Shirayuki was targeted by Durandal and needed a bodyguard, Arya quickly offered to be her bodyguard. Unexpectedly, Shirayuki accepted Arya's offer, albeit with one condition: Kinji must also be her bodyguard, and he must protect her all day long. As a result, Kinji now has to live with two girls in his apartment, though to be more precise, two girls who hate each other and are always fighting. On one occasion, while they were walking home from school together, Shirayuki told Kinji about her dislike of Arya. But even though Shirayuki hated Arya, that didn't necessarily make Kinji stay away from her. He kept talking to her because they were partners, and Arya still had to train him for preparation against Durandal. While they were training, Arya always asked Reki, the sniper, to replace them in protecting Shirayuki. But one day, they again get into a big argument after Kinji expresses his doubts about Durandal's existence. He believed Durandal was just a myth and would continue to think so until Arya proved Durandal's existence. However, Arya was unable to provide any concrete evidence. She could only say that her instincts made her sure that Durandal existed, and her instincts also told her that Durandal was already close to them. In the end, they couldn't agree, and Kinji declared that he would protect Shirayuki alone without her help. And so, from that second, Arya stopped being Shirayuki's bodyguard without telling the person concerned. Kinji then informed Shirayuki about Arya's resignation, which was caused by their conflict, but he promised that he would be able to protect her even if he was alone. Shirayuki was happy to hear that her childhood friend was willing to protect her like that. She remembered that they had watched a fireworks festival when they were little, so she told Kinji that she wanted to see the fireworks festival, which he agreed to. He suggested that they watch the fireworks together on the beach. At night, Kinji bought fireworks and lit them with Shirayuki, but when he leaves for a moment to buy her a drink, Shirayuki gets a text message from someone, and her facial expression instantly changes as she reads it. However, she didn't say anything about the message to Kinji, even though the message seemed very important. The next day at school, Kinji is increasingly convinced that Durandal doesn't exist, so he asked Shirayuki for permission to take a break from his duties as her bodyguard, reasoning that he had to help Muto. But that was a big mistake he made. Not long after, the teacher came to tell Kinji that Shirayuki had disappeared. Panicked, he set out to look for her everywhere, but she was nowhere to be seen. It was at this moment that he started to regret not trusting Arya because Durandal might have kidnapped Shirayuki. If only he had trusted Arya's intuition, Kinji would have been able to prevent Durandal. Fortunately, Kinji has a reliable friend like Reki. The sniper had seen Shirayuki enter a warehouse, and she immediately informed him about it. Sure enough, Shirayuki was talking to Durandal in the warehouse basement. Here it is revealed that the text message she received yesterday was from Durandal, who wanted to persuade her to join them. However, Kinji certainly wouldn't let that happen, so he jumped in to save Shirayuki. But Durandal was surprisingly formidable. They only got a little bit of hope after Arya got there. She confidently claims she will defeat Durandal, for she has learned all about him. She even knew all the tactics he used. Realizing it would be difficult to defeat two opponents at once, Durandal fled after flooding the room and chaining Shirayuki to a pipe. At that time, it was really a bad situation for Arya, who couldn't swim, so Kinji suggested that Arya go after Durandal while he tries to free Shiryuki. But after some time of trying, Kinji still can't break the chains that bind Shiryuki. Meanwhile, the water continued to rise until it almost filled the room. Having no other choice, he has to kiss Shiryuki so he can enter hysteria mode, and after that he could set her free. Suddenly, the water that flooded the basement pushed Kinji and Shiryuki upstairs and separated them from each other. In the end, Kinji reunited with his two friends, even though he felt something strange about Shiryuki. He suspected that it was Durandal posing as her. Sure enough, it wasn't the real Shiryuki, but Durandal in disguise. Unfortunately, before Kinji and Arya could react, Durandal froze her hand with his ice power. And here, it is also revealed that Durandal's real name is Jeanne d'Arc, a descendant of Joan of Arc, the French military leader. However, Arya knew that Joan of Arc had no children when she was executed in the 15th century, so there was no way that Jeanne or Durandal were descendants of Joan of Arc. But Jeanne insisted that she was the 13th descendant of Joan of Arc. According to her, the woman executed by burning in the 15th century was not Joan of Arc, but her body double. Anyway, now that Jeanne has revealed her mind-blowing secret, she invites Arya to join her secret organization, IU. That way, Arya could get her revenge on Riko. But their negotiations are interrupted by the arrival of the real Shiryuki, who throws her chain at Jeanne's sword to save Arya. Because of that, Jeanne was forced to retreat temporarily due to the attack, thus giving Shiryuki a chance to heal Arya's frozen hands. Soon after, Jeanne revealed her true appearance, which resembled that of a female knight since she is a descendant of Joan of Arc. Then Shiryuki revealed that her name was just an alias to hide her real name, Himiko, as in Queen Himiko in ancient Japan. And that's why she can use Esper powers because she is a descendant of Queen Himiko. Then, after everyone revealed their respective identities, Shiryuki and Jeanne started to duel. In that fight, Shiryuki used her family's secret move. Shortly after, she won the battle with Jeanne, thanks to the help of Kinji and Arya. At that moment, their combined attack shatters Jeanne's blade, allowing them to capture her and bring her to justice. With Jeanne captured, peace returns to Kinji's life because Arya and Shiryuki finally got along and even performed together as cheerleaders at the Adsert event. A few days later, Riko returned to action disguised as Arya. With that disguise, she took Kinji to Arya's room and tried to seduce him, hoping to awaken his hysteria mode. But Kinji realized that the woman he was facing was not Arya, considering that she did not have the skills to seduce men. Realizing that her disguise has been discovered, Riko shows Kinji her real face, though she is still trying to seduce him. She even revealed that she had a relationship with his brother. So now she wants Kinji to replace his brother, or in other words, she wants him to be her boyfriend. But before Kinji could respond, Arya interrupted by breaking through the bedroom window, forcing Riko to flee. Then she chased Riko to the roof, where they were about to resume their fight. Meanwhile, Kinji, fed up with their bickering, stops their fight by saying that Arya won't be able to beat Riko. However, Arya complied, but she demanded Riko testify for her mother so that her sentence would be reduced. Unexpectedly, Riko accepted Arya's request and promised she would testify in court. But she has one condition: Arya and Kinji must help her first. She has been kicked out of IU's secret organization for failing to defeat Arya. Sadly, that was not the only punishment because someone from the organization, Vlad the Bad, also stole Riko's mementos. And now she wants them to help her to take that thing back from Vlad's hands. Having no choice, Arya agrees to help Riko, even though Kinji is still unsure because Riko is a thief, and he doubts whether their decision to help her is justified. The next day Riko returns to Bute High, though she spends most of her time at school seducing Kinji. On one occasion, she even flirted with him when their teacher, Toru Sayanaki, spoke in front of the class. No doubt, her behavior eventually made Shiryuki jealous. Shortly after, Shiryuki tried to attack Riko while walking home with Kinji. Unfortunately, she could not dodge Shiryuki's attack. Feeling that it would be useless if she fought against Shiryuki, she temporarily stopped seducing Kinji and left him with Shiryuki. As soon as Riko left, Shiryuki pretended to be injured so Kinji would take her to the nurse's room at school. Incidentally, the room was empty, allowing them to freely talk without worrying about being overheard by others. And so Shiryuki started to speak. She tells Kinji that she should return to the temple for a while because she broke the rules during the Durandal incident. That's why before she left, Shiryuki wanted to inform Kinji about her prediction, which said that he would soon have to face demons, ghosts, and wolves. However, Kinji paid no heed to the warning. In his heart, he thought that he had met those three creatures. One of them was in front of him now. The next day, Kinji and Arya meet Riko to discuss the plans for their mission. Here Riko explains that they will infiltrate Vlad's mansion, which is located on the outskirts of Yokohama, to take back her rosary that she got from her late mother. It turned out that her target's item was in a vault kept in the mansion's basement. However, because Riko doesn't have a floor plan for the dungeon, she isn't sure she can do this mission alone. That's why she needs Arya and Kinji's help. And she also said they wouldn't attack the mansion head-on. Instead, she suggests they disguise themselves as maids and butlers. Hearing that, Arya disagreed with the idea because she was too embarrassed to wear a maid outfit. But in the end, she gave in, considering that Riko would testify in court for her mother. If she refuses, Riko might not want to testify. And so, on that very day, Arya and Kinji started practicing acting as maids and butlers in their own attire. The next day, Riko asked Kinji to meet her at the school's infirmary, arguing that she has something for them to talk about. Then Kinji agreed to meet up, but when he walked through the music room, he found someone he didn't expect to be in the room. It was John, who was no longer wearing knightly armor, but a student's uniform. It turned out that she received no punishment after her arrest. As a condition for her plea bargain, she must be sent to Tokyo Bute High and become a student there. And even though John just entered school, she already knows that Kinji, Arya, and Riko will infiltrate Vlad's residence, who is the number 2 person in IU's organization. She also knew that Riko and Vlad had a history in the past. Based on John's knowledge, after Riko lost her parents, she was taken by Vlad to his mansion. Vlad claims to be her relative, but he treats her badly. He locked her in an underground cell for years, during which time she was given little food and shabby clothes. He had the heart to do this because he was not a human but a demon. But John has useful information that can help Kinji defeat Vlad, the archenemy of the clan. Using a bad sketch, she explains that Vlad has 4 weak points in his body that must be destroyed if Kinji wants to defeat him. However, John only knows 3 of the 4 weak points, so Kinji and the others must figure out the rest. With this information, Kinji left John and continued to the infirmary. But there, he met Mudo, who hastily pulled him into a locker. It turned out that at this time, the girls at school were going to undergo a physical examination at the infirmary, and Mudo had planned to take a peek at them. Sure enough, a few seconds later, Arya, Riko, and some other girls entered the room and started stripping off their clothes, activating Kinji's hysteria mode. But then a great white wolf suddenly burst in through the window. It was unknown what the wolf had come to the school for, but it ran away as quickly as it appeared. Seeing that the wolf was fleeing, Arya ordered Kinji and Reki to chase it, and so they went in pursuit on Muto motorbikes. Moments later, the chase leads them to an empty building, so they hatch a plan to catch the wolf. The plan was that Kinji would enter the building and confront the wolf while Reki would look for opportunities to shoot it from a distance. Fortunately, the plan worked smoothly, although Reki deliberately fired her bullets so that they only grazed the wolf and immobilized it. Then she approached the wolf and somehow made him her pet. For several days after that, Kinji and Arya continued to practice their disguise skills guided by Riko. Then after they were ready, Riko disguised herself as an employment agency agent and took them to Vlad's mansion. But to their surprise, they find their teacher, Sayonaki, inside the mansion. Then Sayonaki explained that Vlad was going to a very far place, and he was assigned to look after the mansion during his absence. Thus, for the next few weeks, Kinji and Arya carried out their roles as diligent butlers and maids while at the same time searching for the exact location of the rosary. Fortunately, they don't always work all the time. Kinji sometimes plays billiards accompanied by Arya. One night, when they were playing billiards, Kinji accidentally dropped the picture of Vlad that John had given him. Shortly after, Arya picked up the picture and looked at it, and it was here that Kinji finally explained to her Vlad's 4 weak points. Because John told him the 3 weak points, they had to find the 4th weak point to defeat him. Later that night, Riko contacted Arya and Kinji to discuss their progress. Arya explained that she had found the location of the rosary in the dungeon, but Sayonaki was always in the dungeon. Besides that, the security around that place is extremely tight, where the path leading to it is blocked by infrared lasers. If someone touches the laser, it will trigger a security alarm. Hearing that explanation, an idea popped up in Riko's mind. She suggested that Arya distract Sayonaki while Kinji, using a special Google, retrieved the rosary from the basement. But to make their plan work, Arya had to keep Sayonaki's attention long enough, and Kinji had to pull off the action fast. After they all agreed on the plan, Arya and Kinji executed it the next day. Soon after, Arya tried to talk to Sayonaki and keep him busy while Kinji infiltrated the dungeons. Luckily they managed to do it without difficulty. But to avoid suspicion, Kinji replaces the rosary with a fake after taking the real one. With the success of their mission, Kinji and Arya did not stay long in the mansion. The next day they resigned from their jobs, and luckily Sayonaki didn't mind. After that, Arya and Kinji met Riko to give the rosary to her. But instead of thanking them, she chose to betray them. It turns out that she still desires to surpass her great-grandfather, Lupin, and to do so, she must defeat Arya and Kinji, the modern-day Sherlock and Watson. She was confident that she could beat them both because the metal contained in the rosary was the source of her strength, and thus, without wasting any more time, Riko summoned all the strength within her hair. It turns out that Riko can manipulate her hair to grip weapons and attack enemies. But before she can attack Arya with her hair, Sayanaki suddenly appears with an army of wolves, and then he shocks Riko with a taser until she faints. It was unknown how Sayanaki had tracked them down, but that didn't matter. For now, he had important information to give them. It turns out that he is actually Vlad, and his name, Sayanaki, is just a cover to hide his identity. During this time, Sayanaki conducted genetic engineering experiments and collected genes to eliminate his weaknesses. And Riko, whom he used to lock up in his mansion, is one of his experimental subjects. She wants Lupin's superior genes, but when Riko proves she has not inherited her great-grandfather's abilities, Sayanaki views her as a failure. In the end, he frees Riko from the underground cell to give her a chance to prove that she can surpass Arsène Lupin. After being satisfied with giving the exposition, Sayanaki transformed into Vlad, a vampire beast who resembled a werewolf. In response, Kinji shoots at the wolves beside Vlad and incapacitates them. That way, at least he and Arya could fully concentrate on fighting Vlad without having to bother with the wolves. So with the wolves immobilized, Arya and Kinji started shooting at Vlad. In between shootings, Arya said that she would not kill Vlad. Instead, she will drag him to court so he can testify for her mother. Then after saying that, she continued shooting at him. But no matter how much they fired at Vlad, the bullets couldn't hurt him. So, realizing that bullets were ineffective against the monster, Arya drew her two swords and used them to attack Vlad's weak points. Sadly, the attack could not knock him down, but it allowed Kinji to snatch Riko from Vlad's grasp and bring her to safety. Here Riko is no longer hostile toward Kinji. She even told him Vlad's fourth weak point might be in his chest. Hearing that, he asked Riko to wait there while he returned to the battle location and helped Arya. When Kinji arrived at the battle area, he immediately told Arya to attack Vlad's chest. But it turns out that Riko's guess was wrong. Vlad's fourth weakness was not in his chest, and their attacks only made him more violent. At one point in the battle, Vlad could even throw Kinji off the roof of the building. Fortunately, Riko saves him by using her parachute. While looking for a location to land, she suggested to Kinji that they should just run away without defeating Vlad, because he is too strong for them, and Riko isn't sure they have what it takes to kill him. As for Arya, they didn't need to tell her. They could leave her on the roof and let her continue fighting Vlad. However, Kinji rejected this great idea. He wouldn't leave Arya alone because she was his partner, even if she was annoying. In fact, Riko should have joined them to fight Vlad, who had been torturing her all this time. He told her that she should have gotten revenge on Vlad instead of running away. Hearing Kinji's words made Riko realize that she had almost made a mistake. Then she agrees to help them fight Vlad, and she has an idea of how to make them win that fight. Thus, Riko brought Kinji back to the roof, where Arya was still fighting Vlad. Without further ado, she dragged Arya towards Kinji, bringing his head closer to Arya's chest. With this, his hysteria mode was activated, and his analytical power increased greatly, allowing Kinji to find Vlad's fourth weak spot, which turned out to be on his tongue. Kinji could tell because Vlad always covered his mouth when fighting. It is unknown how he could know that, considering that all normal people must cover their mouths while busy fighting. Soon after, Kinji started to come up with a strategy so they could shoot Vlad's weak point, and the strategy worked. They managed to kill Vlad with their remaining 4 bullets. With Vlad dead, Kinji tries to convince Riko that she has surpassed her great-grandfather because Arsène Lupin has never beaten a vampire beast, werewolf, or anything like that, so she has surpassed him. Hearing that, Riko agrees with Kinji and will keep her promise to Arya to testify at her mother's trial. After saying that, she left them using her parachute. On the other hand, Arya was very happy to hear that her mother would be released soon. And with that, this anime ends.